All right, welcome back. History will be made this week when leaders from North and South Korea meet Friday in the demilitarized zone between the two countries. The talks are also expected to lay the groundwork for an upcoming summit between North Korea's Kim Jong-un and President Donald Trump. Ahead of the meeting, North Korea made a dramatic announcement saying it would suspend its nuclear and long-range missiles. Well, according to the Washington Post, White House officials are privately skeptical about that announcement, expressing concerns the North Korean dictator could be trying to set a trap for the U.S. This morning, President Trump tweeting out, "We are a long way from conclusion on North Korea. Maybe things will work out and maybe they won't. So only time will tell. But the work I am doing now should have been done a long time ago." That from Trump. I want to bring in Congressman Mike Turner. He is a Republican from Ohio and a member of the House Intelligence Committee. Good to see you, Congressman. So, in your view, is it believable that Kim Jong-un would give up his weapons, or is this temporary, perhaps even conditional?
Well, I am a skeptic when it comes to North Korea. Having served on the Armed Services Committee and past 10 years looked at this issue, both through the Bush administration, Obama administration, and now with the Trump administration, I'm obviously very concerned. It's a regime that is not truthful. They're going to cheat, and certainly their motivations are always to be questioned. They're not a regime that we would want to have nuclear weapons. However, we're faced with a situation where they do. And I think this administration has rightly turned the pressure to China. There would not be a nuclear North Korea if it wasn't for China. Even the regime would not exist if it wasn't for China. So the administration has built up our military presence in South Korea. Significant military exercises have occurred. There's been initiation of talks between South Korea and North Korea, and obviously the CIA director has reportedly met in North Korea. This all leading up to trying to apply pressure on the regime so that they see that there is a turn where they need to denuclearize the peninsula, and certainly the United States is going to stand firm on that as its principle.
So take a listen to Republican Senator Bob Corker earlier today on CNN about the current state of tensions with Russia.
Do you think that the U.S. should be preparing for an armed conflict with Russia?
No, what I'm saying is, look, our relations are at that low point, the lowest since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Our leadership knows that. Secretary Mattis knows that. And therefore, the rhetoric, the kinds of things we're doing to deconflict in Syria are very important, because things are hot right now between us, and it's not that we should be preparing. It's that we should be aware that miscalculations could lead us to a very bad place.
All right, at least two tense things here, North Korea and Russia. And you had called, in fact, for further sanctions on Russia over the suspected gas attack in Syria and the attack on a former spy in the UK. So are those sanctions needed to send a more clear, terse message to Vladimir Putin?
I think so. I mean, the question of whether or not we should be preparing for conflict with Russia really needs to be answered with Russia has been preparing for conflict with the United States and our NATO allies for some time, with the modernization of its nuclear weapons, modernization of its ground forces and equipment, its armament, its weapons exercises, including the nuclear weapons exercises. I think what our response needs to be is a coordinated response with our allies. But we also need to be reinvesting back into our military. We're coming out of the period of the cuts of sequestration. And we need to be focused on not preparing for a conflict, but preparing to deter. It needs to be clear to Russia that both our military capabilities and that of our allies are such that they would not be successful. And at the same time, though, their behavior in Syria, in the Ukraine, what occurred in London, all are issues that are going to be unacceptable to the rest of the world, and I think sanctions are the appropriate response to that. You cannot be at the table as if you are an equal when you are executing behavior that is unacceptable.
So Ambassador Haley had promised last weekend that more sanctions were coming. How concerned are you that President Trump never followed through on those additional sanctions?
Well, I don't know what the internal deliberations are at the White House. I don't know what they are considering. I know that, as you've reported, I certainly am for additional sanctions. I believe that this is rising to the point that there's a pattern. When we have chemical weapons being used in London, we have chemical weapons being used Syria, clearly that shows that Russia is outside of the international norm. These are weapons that are to be banned, that are not to be used, and here we have Russia acting as if even with one of our own Western allies that they can go onto the streets of London and use them to kill an individual. So this is something that I think requires a very strong response.
Congressman Mike Turner, we'll leave it there. Thank you.